My name is Deb, and I believe I was divinely guided to come into ATMC. I had been sitting on my couch that morning, praying and meditating and asking for help because I'd had a really rough couple of months. And to be honest, a difficult couple of years leading up to those really rough couple of months. And I knew that I needed some kind of help, so I was praying and meditating. And later that day, I was driving home from somewhere, and like a gift from God, the words ATMC dropped into my consciousness. And I knew that that was the answer to my prayers from the morning. So I went home and Googled, and within a week, I was there. And what led up to that was I had been taking Xanax on and off for about 20 years. I was first given it when I went into rehab for alcoholism 20 years ago. And because it was prescribed by a doctor in rehab, it really never occurred to me that there was anything wrong with it or that I was maybe compromising my sobriety. I gladly took it, and the longer I was sober, the less I needed it, and I eventually weaned myself off. And then about 10 years ago, our family had a tragedy. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, and my friend was killed by a hit-and-run drunk driver while she was riding her bike one day. And that just devastated me and our family. And I just couldn't bear the sadness. I was helping my brother, and I don't know any other way to say it, I just couldn't bear the sadness. So I went to the doctor because I knew it would help me, and they prescribed Xanax. And very, very small dose this time around, but it helped, And it didn't really occur to me that I couldn't deal with things. I mean, I knew I needed help, but it never occurred to me that maybe I could get help in another way without taking a pill. I just gladly took the pill. And that went on for, about 10 years, and then I was starting to wean myself off of that because I realized I didn't want to be medicated. And last summer I had a major surgery, and I was under anesthesia and a lot of antibiotics and a lot of medication. And I think it changed my body chemistry because all of a sudden the Xanax wasn't working. And I needed to take more. And it wasn't working, and I needed to take more. And then I wasn't sleeping, and I've always been a sleeper. And so I was given Ambien. And so now I'm taking Ambien and higher doses of Xanax. And I just got to a point where my body felt toxic, and I knew that I was in trouble, thus leading to the prayer that morning and my coming to ATMC. My overall experience at the detox shop was magnificent. It was my absolute favorite of my time spent at ATMC. There were so many things I could say about it. By week 2, I discovered how I could get the most out of it by going back into the spa and having what I call the works. I'd go back there and say, give me the works. And so they did. They would give me a castor oil pack, an ionic foot bath, a facial, and a glutathione breathing treatment. And I would sit there with the works on me 3 days a week, completely relaxed, and think about how loving and caring this was, and that I needed to do more of that in my life, and how that was lacking. And so I got a lot of aha moments out of that, and I just dug being back in the spa area, being pampered. And then I could go into the sauna, which sort of is the crux of the program. And if you would have told me before I came to ATMC that I would enjoy sitting in a 200-degree sauna for 2 hours, I would have told you were crazy. But I loved it. I loved the zenness of it. it only took me a week to work myself up to the 2 hours on what I call the big girl sauna. And being alone in that space really led to a lot of reflection and lots more aha moments. And being with a fellow resident in that situation was even better, because we really opened up from a place of heart and rawness and shared ourselves in ways I hadn't done in years. And one of my fellow residents said he was going to write a book saying Confessions in the Sauna, because we would just pour our guts out. And so much came from that, from the whole experience at the detox shop. Just taught me to really be in touch with me and my heart, and taught me again, reminded me again of how I need self-care and connection to others. It was the crux of the program for me. I think my favorite of the evening groups and the most helpful was Dustin's group on Tuesday nights. He is such an engaging teacher. He's passionate about his subject. He's articulate. He's engaging. He's been in the trenches, so he knows of what he speaks. And he just had a way of really connecting with our group and teaching us things we probably already knew but maybe forgot. And he gave us books, which I really liked. And I look forward to doing those workbooks as sort of a continuing education of my time at ATMC. It was hard for me to go to the evening groups because I was so tired by then, but I always look forward to his. I think what helped me the most at ATMC were the supplements. I suffer from anxiety, and I was afraid to be off the medication. And they started titrating me down the first day I came in. And I worried how that would be, because I hadn't been able to do it on my own. And I would become very anxious and not sleep. And the supplements that I was given really helped me to alleviate any feelings of fear or discomfort. I mean, I felt okay. There was a few times where I'd have some anxious moments or not sleep real well. I think the first 3 days, until my body got used to the supplements and the detox work at the detox shop. But I think really for me, the supplements were a big part of the program. And the therapy. I was very fortunate to work with 2 amazing therapists who got me right away. I mean, we don't waste any time. And one of the things that was said to me, which was really profound, and when I say it sounds silly, but one of the therapists said to me, "You know, Deb, you're always going to have anxiety." And it was one of those moments like, really? I thought maybe I'd leave here cured. But then on a deeper level, knowing, yeah, that's the truth. I always am, and so maybe I need to develop a different relationship with it. And that started me on that relationship. And I do have a different relationship with it now. So when I have moments of anxiety, I just remember that, and it helps. And instead of me being a slave to it, I guess I'm letting it work for me now, and that has been very helpful. What were my favorite things at ATMC? There were so many. I think for me, what really stood out for me the most was having a roommate, which I haven't done in 33 years. And it was one of the things I was most afraid of coming in, because I couldn't get a private room. Every time I've ever gone to a retreat in my adult life, I've always requested a private room. And I would use the excuse of, energy or needing the time. And then I was at ATMC, and now I have a roommate, and oh my God. And it turned out to be one of the best things that could have happened to me there. We developed a bond right away, and it just taught me things about myself and about how I had closed myself off. And, without going into too much detail, we just learned a lot about each other and ourselves, and it was very helpful. So that was probably my favorite thing. The other things I really liked were having the time. I'd never been in an inpatient residential treatment program, and I didn't know what that was going to be like. And what I liked was it was structured, but there was also time alone. So I found a sunny little corner outside, and I spent a lot of time sitting there, reading and writing and meditating and reflecting. And I loved that. Because again, it was something I always used to do in my real life and forgot. And so it anchored me back into who I was. And I liked the groups, and I liked the therapists. I liked everything about it. I liked how I was able to find my voice and speak up, and how the care providers were okay with that, because I wasn't always as elegant and as graceful as I would have liked to be in the beginning. I absolutely felt supported as I was transitioning from ATMC to my home. And I worried about that initially, like, oh my God, what's it going to be like going back out into the real world and going back to work? And I think the process for me started about a week before I left, because I met with my care managers, with the therapist, with the nurses, with the staff at the detox shop about what are your plans, what are you going to do. So it didn't just happen like that. We talked about it a lot, and I really appreciated that. So I knew that I was going home with supplements, and I knew that I could have more down the road, and where to get them and how to get them. I committed to 4 months, meeting once a month with my care manager for therapy appointments as a form of aftercare. I have the books from Dustin, which I plan to start using the workbooks to kind of be like a continuing education of my time here, so as not to forget, to stay fresh with all of these aha moments and these feelings. I also know that anytime I need help, I can call ATMC, and somebody will be there to help me. And that is so reassuring. I went back there 2 weeks after I graduated to meet and hang out with my roommate, because we had developed such a great relationship, and she was still there. And it was so great just going back and seeing everybody and getting hugs and sitting in our old bedroom and talking. And so I feel and felt very supported in my transition. And I came home, and I have a very compassionate, kind, loving husband who was with me 100%, going in and being gone from home for 30 days, which I'd never done. And coming home, he made the transition as easy as possible. But if I'm honest, the first couple of days it was just kind of weird. But I just stayed in that weirdness and was able to feel my feelings, which is something I learned at ATMC. Just feel it. And one of my sayings when I'm afraid is to do it afraid. And so I employed that again, and I just did it afraid until I wasn't afraid anymore. And it's been okay.